and welcome back to Cast the Whills. This is our first episode for 2026. It's
Exciting.
been a bit since our last one. We have had some holidays, a bit of time off, so we're finally getting back into it. We were trying to set up a Death Star earlier that Amelia got me for Christmas. It was like a light up globe, but it was flickering a bit on camera, so maybe in future if we can figure out the technical stuff, we can get it on.
Or if anyone's really keen to see it anyway, we'll do
Maybe
it next
we
time.
can just put it on, yeah. Otherwise, I think since our last episode, it's just been a bit of relaxing, bit of holidays. We've been playing a lot of Star Wars: The Clone Wars board game.
We have.
We watched a episode of the Book of Boba Fett the other week. I think have you done any other Star Wars themed activities? I think the Star Wars TTRPG campaign with Lucy is still going quite strong. So yeah, that's how what we've been up to beginning of the year, because I feel like my holidays are always like Star Wars centric. I got some Star Wars gifts for Christmas, a Star Wars stocking, all these fun things my mum made for me. And that is it for our
Recap.
New Year wrap up.
Yeah.
So first episode of 2026, and it has gotten off with a bang. We've got a shift in the Lucasfilm leadership. So Kathleen Kennedy, who's been the head of Lucasfilm since I believe 2013, George Lucas sold the company, she has officially stepped down. And so I've got my notes with me. So taking her place is Dave Filoni. He's becoming the chief creative officer and co-president.
Unsurprising.
Yeah, I think everyone was kind of expecting it. And Lynwen Brennan, who's a co-president, and she's going to focus on the business and financial side. She was previously a vice president of Lucasfilm, so she's just being moved up a bit. And Kathleen Kennedy said she always did the business stuff, so now she's doing it in the most senior capacity, I guess you could. And well, this is a bit of interest to me because Star Wars fan, and I'm doing half of my degree is a commerce degree, so it's interesting seeing the business side come in and trying to think, what is the whole business role in Lucasfilm, and how come one of the presidents has to be all business centric?
True, yeah.
Just trying to figure out what that structure is. So obviously Star Wars news, there are going to be reactions to it. Opinions, yeah. So I think we'll say what the opinions are, then we can maybe talk about what we think. So a lot of people I think were happy that Kathleen Kennedy was moving on. Obviously there's people have just been not happy with the Disney Star Wars stuff that's going on overall. So people were happy about her leaving. Initially, people were very happy that Dave Filoni's taking over, just because a lot of the projects he's been involved with have had that, I guess, what people call the essence of Star Wars. He worked with George Lucas, is trained by him. But then, of course, Star Wars, people found him saying one thing and took it out of context. I think he said Andor was a different take on Star Wars. So all clickbait is now,
fair.
Which is fair, but clickbait has been Dave Filoni hates Andor,
Right, okay.
brackets the best Star Wars ever. So it's kind of that stuff, and then it's people kind of coming out and saying, no, that isn't what was said. So that was interesting because I think what he was trying to get at, because then I watched the interview where he said that, and the point he was saying was Andor was different in a good way because it means there's an appetite for mature Star Wars content, like your R18 content, but it's still important to have the content for kids because, Star Wars is inherently for kids, but also to cultivate new fans growing up.
Yeah.
So I think they said going forward, Andor has shown that they can do that more mature content.
And they can keep the audience.
And that they can keep the audience. So
throughout different life stages.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's just people taking something out of context just to have a go with it. And then there was
of it, maybe.
an insider from Lucasfilm said he hated it, and then someone from Lucasfilm said no, that was made up. Anyway, and then the stuff with Kathleen Kennedy it has been tough because I feel like with any business, the person to blame is usually the CEO or head of a company. In the case of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy was the head of the company. So, and it goes, you look at any business, if something goes wrong, people aren't blaming those who orchestrated it. It's more the head of the food chain, which, look, to an extent you get because they're ultimately the one responsible. They're green lighting projects. They're the ones overseeing it the whole way through. They're the ones entrusted with the keys to whatever business it is. In this case, Lucasfilm, so Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and I think ILM comes under Lucasfilm. So I understand people were dissatisfied with her, and I guess it was I guess we might get into it, but she had a bit more. People didn't like the feminist agenda, which maybe that's a whole episode of itself, whether it's an agenda or if it's just reflecting reality. We've just had a certain type of story for most of our lives. I think there was a whole thing around the Force is female. People didn't like that. And
that was back for the sequels, right?
It was back for the sequels, yeah. And then obviously people didn't like Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. People were taking out on her. So it was a bit, but then people have to remember The Mandalorian doesn't happen without Kathleen Kennedy. Rogue One doesn't happen without Kathleen Kennedy. I remember they said, Andor, they said, I saw an interview Tony Gilroy said, I wanted to open the show in a brothel and I didn't think I could. And Kathleen Kennedy said I could. So I think it's important that we remember heads of businesses, that we blame them for the bad stuff, sure, but you've got to remember the good that they do. So if there's anything you've liked in the Disney era, you have to blame Kathleen Kennedy for that, So I think it is an interesting look at fandom and how people react to things, and just, I guess, a scapegoat is easy. Like if there's been 10 projects and you don't like some of them, rather than blaming like each director or showrunner, there's like one person you can kind of focus it on. So I think it's more of an interesting look at modern fandoms and how we approach and give feedback. So I feel like I was being a bit pushy there. I feel like, obviously, I think the most important thing to remember about Kathleen Kennedy is she worked on, E.T., Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, like any of those Spielberg, Lucasfilm movies you like, she has had a part to play. So I think that's part of remembering is her work isn't just 2013 to now Star Wars. There's been a whole history of what she's worked on.
You don't get to be head of Lucasfilm.
Well, if you haven't
nowhere.
done anything. So I think it's important to recognize the good she's done, and it's fair criticism for stuff that people haven't liked. Once again, you can critique things, that's fine, but it's just the extent and level of negativity I think has been interesting, and just seeing like there's been a lot of celebration about her stepping down. So, it is what it is, but I'd like to do an episode maybe another time talking about fandom, perchance.
Culture, perhaps, as well.
Yeah. But the juicy stuff we got from it was she did an exit interview with the Daily Wire.
I was about to ask, do you know why she stepped down?
Yeah, they didn't. I think they just said like a change was coming. I guess she's done the job for 12 years now. She's been able to leave her marker imprint. Maybe as they're moving into a new phase of Star Wars, this was maybe like phase 1 of Star Wars with Kathleen Kennedy, then phase 2 is going to be this kind of the Dave Filoni headed and the Lin-Wen Brennan headed, seeing like what is it like if you have one person who's all on story and one person who's all business. Does that work better? Does it not work as great? That's what I'm really interested in, is if you split up a lead role, yes, you get to specialize, but then coordination can be more difficult, and there can be obviously interdepartmental conflicts. And that goes with any business case study, which this is why I find this really interesting. So the first piece of information we got, which straight away I wanted to tell you, but I had to hold on because I wanted to see a reaction now. So apparently, recently, Lucasfilm approached Vince Gilligan for a Star Wars series.
I did see that, actually.
So I hope that happens, because I would love a 5-season slow burn,
20 episodes.
20 episodes,
season, maybe
dramedy. Like I would love like a Better Call Saul vibe kind of show, but I think maybe more Breaking Bad show, which is a bit more like paced and action intensive. I think that would fit in Star Wars.
Story based rather than character based.
Yeah, because I think Better Call Saul would have. I think Andor's maybe filled that, character driven stuff. But I think a high quality, mature action series, like maybe what Mandalorian season 1 was, cranking it up a bit
with a bit more of an overarching story.
Yes, that's like planned over a multi-season show,
episodic, kind of like that.
Yeah,
first season.
So I think he could just do an amazing. I mean, he could do any show he wants, but that could just be an amazing show. I feel like it'd more be probably like Underworld. vibes. I feel like that'd be
Andor
his like
vibes, but with more of a story
like
rather than
Gus
character
Fring.
focus.
yeah. He's bring back Los Pollos Hermanos in Star Wars. I feel like I'm trying to envision Breaking Bad in Star Wars. I'm trying to think like what's something new to do, but I just think he would do such a great criminal underworld TV show, like not a bounty hunter show, but I think like Spice Runners or something. That's just, I guess it's Breaking Bad in Star Wars. So I feel like that would be so cool. I hope he does something. But I understand if they do like a multi-season show, that would be him committing a lot of time. And if you're a showrunner where he's got like the new show Pluribus, that seems to be his, all right, I've made 2 really good shows. Let me make what I want now. And so I feel like if he's in this stage of his career where he's making what he wants, maybe Star Wars doesn't speak to him. Like he might like Star Wars, but from what I can tell, he doesn't seem like a Star Wars guy where he would be willing to commit the next 5 to 10 years of his career to Star Wars. So that's really interesting. I really hope something comes. If it's a movie, cool, but I really hope like a multi-season show, which really strong character development, tension, and world building. I think it would be very interesting.
I hope so too.
The next piece of information, which is you can watch my previous episodes to hear more thoughts about. The hunt for Ben Solo is a possibility if it's a risk they want to take. So they said obviously the fan reaction has been pretty good, and they might be reviewing the movie, but it's going to be if Disney or Lucasfilm are willing to take that risk on the movie. Because once again, I think it's like the idea is cool, but obviously anything there is a risk, but more risk, more reward. So that's good to hear that movie hasn't been written off completely. I think the fan reaction, I think it'll get announced. I don't know how often they've announced something or a cancelled project that people are this adamant about. So I think that movie will come out. The next piece of information, this is a small one, and this doesn't indicate much to me, is that Starfighter, the movie, might have a sequel. So the first glance is, well, it means they're confident in the movie.
Yeah.
So it probably means it's a good movie. But they did announce a Rian Johnson trilogy before The Last Jedi came out. And that was announced, that's now 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Nothing's come of that trilogy. And before the movie came out, everyone was like, wow, Last Jedi must be incredible if they're announcing the director's getting a trilogy. Obviously, opinions aside for Last Jedi, I didn't mind it. But people didn't like it. It was a big opinion for the movie. So for me, something maybe having a sequel doesn't tell me the quality of it. From what I can tell so far, it seems pretty good. But I'll just wait to see when it comes out. The next piece of information, and this is finally, there was I think Disney, they have D23, which is when they do all the big Disney announcements. 2021, it was a big one. Marvel was starting Disney Plus. There's a big push. They were announcing a lot of stuff. And then Star Wars announced all of these series and Rangers of the New Republic, all these things, and nothing's come up from since 2021. A few have, I think Mandalorian and Obi-Wan,
but a minority.
But it was a minority. Yeah. So some of the projects that were announced then, which are confirmed to still be alive, Taika Waititi movie.
I saw that.
Finally got a script, has been turned in. Apparently it's hilarious, incredible. So
I thought you'd expect.
That's probably another 3-4 years away. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm surprised that's still in the works. I thought maybe after Love and Thunder they might have pushed that to the side. But I'm glad to hear that's full steam ahead. One thing I just remembered, we haven't heard anything about the Kevin Feige movie. He was meant to produce a Star Wars movie that was also announced in 2021, but we haven't heard.
He's the Marvel guy.
Yeah, he's like the Kathleen Kennedy or Dave Filoni of Marvel.
Interesting.
I think it was just to try something new out. Next piece of information. Donald Glover turned in a script for the Lando movie.
I think I've seen this post that you've seen, maybe, because I saw that too.
So originally Lando was meant to be a TV show, and then I think it just got changed into a movie, and then 5 years has passed. Everyone assumed it kind of just got quietly shuffled. But I'm glad to hear Donald Glover's in it because he was incredible in Solo as Lando. It felt like you were watching a young Billy D. Williams playing the character. So I'm excited for that. Once again, probably a few more years out.
When I was reading that, I thought it was interesting that the actor had taken on the role of the writer.
Well, he does a lot of directing and
he's
writing.
Very multi-talented, I can tell.
I think he did Community and Atlanta. And I haven't seen Atlanta, but I heard a lot of good things about it. So I wasn't too surprised directing a Star Wars thing, that's a massive behemoth. So good on him for taking on that challenge, and hopefully we get something soon about that. The next thing is James Mangold, the director of Logan, but also the director of Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny. He had a movie announced in London Celebration, so 2023, which was going to be a Rey movie after episode 9.
Okay.
His script is on hold, but apparently it's a good script. So in August or November, he submitted the first script. They said it was good. They went back to the drawing board a bit, and in March they're doing the next script, I believe. So that one's still going on. People thought that was another one that kind of had been quietly shuffled a bit, but
shelved,
it's still going ahead. Look, I love Logan, incredible movie, but then Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, it was the other end of Logan, let's say. So we'll see what happens. Rey's an interesting character at this point in the timeline. Just excited we're getting Star Wars. The next thing, Simon Kinberg had been announced to have a trilogy of movies that take place after 9. I don't know whether they were meant to be episodes 10, 11, 12 or just a trilogy. They are still in the works. That was another one people just thought was maybe dead in the water.
Can I ask what you think the difference is between episode 10, 11, 12 versus a trilogy after episode 9?
I think it may not focus on the same characters. Like Rey, Finn and Poe may not be... They might be cameos or they may not be in the movie at all. It might just be Starfighter is taking place after 9, but it's not connected. It might be a Star Wars trilogy in the timeline here, disconnected. But once again, we don't know. Not much has been said. That we just got that one announcement. Another thing, we thought it was maybe dead in the water on hold. I'm glad to hear it's still in the works, just more Star Wars. I think that was one actually where the script is coming in March. So if the script is in March, they'll probably go into pre-production this year. So it might be a 2028 or 29 for the first movie. So
not too far.
Not too far away. It's weird to think 2026. It's 2028, that's ages away. No, it's 2 years away. Anyway,
Getting old.
the next piece of information, which I'm interested to see where this goes, Ryan Johnson's trilogy is on the back burner. So it's not
The one that
cancelled. Yeah, the one that's
they
announced
announced. Okay,
in
yeah.
2017.
I guess people probably
Yeah.
assumed as much.
Look, he's been working on Knives Out,
Yeah,
which
true.
overall I've quite enjoyed quite a bit. But it was one of those things I think I just kind of assumed it was done. But look, it's on the back burner. Who knows? Maybe 10 years time they might revisit it. So those were the big pieces of news. So oh wait, sorry, I got something completely wrong. The James Mangold movie isn't a Ray movie. It's an Old Republic movie. It takes place thousands of years before Episode 1. And it's
So kind of
called
acolyte style?
before that. It's called
Before
Dawn of the
that,
Jedi,
okay.
and it's about how the first Jedi were made and how the Order was found.
I think you've spoken about this to me before, yeah.
So sorry, it wasn't the Ray movie. It was the Dawn of the Jedi movie. So that was one. Sorry, that one I'm so interested in. Like,
Yeah, that sounds really
the
good.
origins of the Force. I think they even described it as. So the beginning of the Force, the beginning of the Jedi,
and like
maybe
the
Sith.
early religion, not the
Yeah, the early, not the prequels
version
one.
that
Yeah.
you see.
So I
Yeah.
think that movie will be fascinating. So sorry, I'm so excited for that movie. I'm so glad it's still working on
Is
it.
there still a Ray movie?
I'll get to that in a moment.
Okay.
Sorry, so that movie, Dawn of the Jedi, so excited for that. James Mangold, I really hope he pulls it off. If they're going back to work on the script a bit more, that's a good thing to me because a rushed movie is bad forever. A delayed movie is good forever.
Exactly.
So I'd rather them take their time, get it, cook in the oven for a bit. So that was the big pieces of news. So a few more miscellaneous items. So some things I've picked up on, people have spoken about, a few other comments she made in the interview. The first thing, there was no word on the Ray movie.
Okay.
So that's why I was thinking of the Ray movie. So nothing was said about that movie, which people are thinking, if everything else that we thought was cancelled was talked about, why wasn't that brought up? Once again,
Right.
it could just be she's talking about her leaving the biggest part of her career. Maybe she isn't thinking about everything on top of her mind. But, it is interesting to see the Ray movie wasn't mentioned. The other telling thing that was not brought up was the Mandoverse movie. So the Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Ahsoka
Thrawn?
movie with Thrawn.
Yeah.
That wasn't mentioned once. And you
Because that's
think
meant to be happening, right?
I think Dave Filoni's meant to be directing it, and I think it's meant to, be a few years out. But, that is what they've been working towards on the Disney Plus shows was the Endgame style movie of here's all the shows connecting with and I think
Yeah.
Skeleton Crew is meant to feed into it. So I think it's like if that movie was coming out, I feel like she would have said it's so incredible seeing
Can't
how
wait.
these 5 shows are going to incorporate into one movie.
Yeah.
Like she would have said something good about it. But the fact that nothing was said, they may be retreating a bit from their Disney Plus plan and moving into
Yeah.
movies now. So
Maybe seeing how the Mandalorian and Grogu
I
performs.
think, that's going to be a really interesting test. I think
Which I'm excited for.
I'm excited for, but it's just, I'll see, interested to see what the numbers are.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll crack 1 billion,
Okay.
but I'm very, very excited for it still. But I think it is telling if she didn't raise the Mandalorian verse movie, because that's like been the thing that they've been working towards. So look, we'll see. I hope it's made because it'd be cool to see all the characters interact and we get the Heir to the Empire movie. So, and we'd have like Luke Han, Leia probably in it. So anyway, it is what it is. The next tidbit of information is she commented on the Solo movie. I think she said it was a misstep, not because it was just like, I think audience weren't ready for a different actor to play a character.
And you said timing was
Timing.
bit
So it
off
came
there.
out 5 months after The Last Jedi.
which people didn't receive.
People didn't
very
like it.
well.
To put it simply, people didn't receive it well. People didn't like it.
Yeah.
And then to release a movie 5 months after, not a year after, was a quick turnaround. And I think a Han Solo movie people weren't too interested in because Han had died in 7.
Yeah.
So people were kind of not done with the character, but they'd closed that character to themselves. And then she was saying just like the actor Alden Ehrenreich, he did a fantastic job, but it was just a monumental task to say you have to replicate one of the most iconic characters in cinema and in Star Wars, and you have to like not copy it but not do too much new. It was just a tough spot to be in, and maybe they were pushing the boundaries a bit too early. Like maybe they should have done some other stuff and later on done a legacy character prequel movie. Whereas I think because it was like the beginning of the Disney era, they were like, let's try a Rogue One spin-off. Let's do the trilogy. Let's do a Han Solo. Let's see. Because then I think they announced Han Solo and Obi-Wan at the same time. So I think they were trialing like prequels for legacy characters. And then obviously Obi-Wan went from movies into a TV show, I think because Solo didn't work. And I think so.
Right.
Solo was a big moment. I think Solo showed them we can't pump out a movie every 6 to 12 months, because I think that was the pace they wanted to start reaching. It was like kind of like Marvel, of like multiple
Yeah.
movies a year. And I think Star Wars maybe isn't made for multiple releases a year. I think Star Wars is a bit of
I
like
don't think any franchise is.
yeah. I think peak Marvel it was working, but it was still like pretty intense. So I
It's
think
a lot
yeah.
to maintain a level of quality. Like, I feel like there comes
Yes.
a quality versus quantity
Exactly, yeah.
discussion, and perhaps Marvel
Definitely.
in recent years has fallen into
Yeah,
quantity
exactly. Yeah.
over quality.
Exactly. So I think
Yeah.
that was interesting, maybe her admitting that misstep. And then just seeing like the consequences where the Lando show has been delayed and it's turned into a movie, and just seeing like all these things. But because I like Solo, I just wonder if it came out in like 2021, would people have received it a lot
Yeah.
well when they weren't burnt out on Last Jedi, when they may be a bit more receptive to a new actor taking on the character. And I think maybe if they'd figure out, you know, they had deep fake Luke Skywalker in Mandalorian and Boba Fett, would they have done a deep fake Harrison
for a
Ford?
whole movie.
Probably they would have. Because
Yeah.
they did it in Dial of Destiny. They do it for a little bit. You haven't seen it. They do it for a little bit in Dial of Destiny. And I watched a video recently talking about insane tangent about deepfake technology. It's while impressive, it detracts from the story, because when you're watching it, your brain's going, "Is that convincing?" You're not in the scene or you're not in the moment anymore. You're too busy going, "Has the trick worked?" And as soon as you're not thinking about story or character, you kind of undone the story. So I think you couldn't deepfake Han Solo for a whole movie. I think recasting was the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
I think they just said they were doing it too soon.
Do you think, though, on that note, if there was a new audience who maybe wasn't aware of the existing character, like, do you think the deepfake would pass to someone who hasn't seen
Oh,
Luke
I get what you mean.
in the original
Okay.
Star Wars, but they've only watched the
Well,
Boba
yeah,
Fett
because
show?
I remember I watched Rogue One with my parents, like in 2017. They said to me, "I thought Peter Cushing was dead." Because he died in like the 80s or 90s. And I was like, no, that was like a full CGI character. So they believed it because they weren't aware that he had passed. So I think it can work. That one was like a big push at the time, the Grand Moff Tarkin character in Rogue One.
And that would have been the early days.
That was the early
kind of
days. That was
technology.
before they did the new technology was like face mapping. This was like
Yeah.
a full CGI thing. But so I think my parents bought it. They're not huge into Star Wars. They just kind of like know the characters vaguely. So I think Harrison Ford's hard to fake because he's like a
Bit too
A-list actor,
iconic, yeah.
and it's hard to do Han Solo without Harrison Ford. And
then on that note, you're probably not going to bother with the deep faking if it's not an A-list actor.
yes,
I guess
and
there's
then
the continuity question there.
there is,
But
it's one of those things. Maybe
Yeah.
we can all act like grown-ups and say, look, if we want more stories with this character, we have to recast. You know, like Luke
Yeah.
can be played by Sebastian Stan, for example, and it'd be, and you know, if that means I get Return of the Jedi Luke adventures, I'll
You'll
take
take
it.
it.
I'm not going to complain about it doesn't look like him because it's a character. So yeah. Anyway, so that was interesting how she's admitted that wasn't the right step, whether it was timing, character, both, or whatever it was.
I must say, I do need to rewatch Solo, but I didn't feel like there was much story to be told there. Like, I've been sitting on this point for a while during the podcast. I was going to say I don't know if prequels have much substance to them, unless in the context of particularly Star
Oh,
Wars.
yeah.
No, but like Star Wars, okay, you had, wasn't it originally called Star Wars, and then it went straight into episode 5.
Yeah.
So you know that something's
Yeah.
coming and they've got a
Yeah.
story to tell. But a lot of the time prequels can feel like maybe even a cash grab, or they're
Yes.
filling a
Well,
gap
because
that
the end
doesn't need to be
point is
filled.
defined. I think that's the toughest part is, as the audience, you know where the story ends. So it's trying to say, how do we tell a compelling story where even if you know the outcome, you're still moved by it?
Because I feel like...
And my best example is Better Call Saul.
yeah.
That's a show where it enhances the original Breaking Bad, which I think, honestly, you can't watch Breaking Bad now without Better Call Saul afterwards. Like, it just changes how you view the show. It deepens a lot of the characters, but you still get tension. Like, you think of Lalo and Chuck and, what's Ray Seahorn's character? Kim Wexler. Those characters, even though they may be put in there because you don't know their fates, they might live or die or move somewhere, I think they're still interesting, and you get so much more about Saul Goodman that when you watch Breaking Bad originally, you think he's the funny comedy guy, whereas after Better Call Saul, he's like a disturbing, sad character. And once again, I wouldn't call Better Call Saul cash grab. It feels like they really try to tell you something about this character. And I'm not saying that prequels have to reshape how you view things. I just think prequels can work. But in the 2010s era where we had like Fantastic Beasts, where that felt like a bit of a cash grab, I completely get what you're saying about it can feel like oh, it's a safe bet doing a prequel because it's a character people like and the story isn't too much of a risk because we know where it'll end. But then once again, it's just people looking at it and saying, oh, I know where this is going. Why should I watch this now? Like, I know the spoilers for it, so why should I watch it?
I'll say it minus spoilers for Better Call Saul, but I feel like that series in particular, it starts in a position that's so far removed from where you find the character that it still has so much to get to.
Yeah.
And for Star Wars in particular, with the prequel trilogy, it's almost Shakespearean in its nature that you know where it's going, and that's part of the intrigue.
Yeah.
How do we get to this end point? I guess you could say for Better Call Saul too, like the start point and the end point is so vastly different that the intrigue comes from wondering how you get there.
I suppose.
Whereas I feel like from what I do remember of Solo, it's just a bounty hunter story.
It was tricky because it was Han Solo. Characters have to have a character arc.
Yeah.
Han Solo's arc had to be he's going from like a selfish smuggler to who we meet at the beginning of episode 4, who is a selfish smuggler.
Yeah.
So I think they were trying to say, like, how do we have a character arc, but he's still the same?
Yeah.
And I think they had him, like, helping the rebellion a little bit out, but he was still, like, involved on his own. I think that's the tricky part, is how do you make him a hero in that movie without
the development?
Without the development, like, he's the same character. So that was, I think, an interesting thing. But maybe prequels are for another episode to talk about the nature of prequels. But yeah, I think I enjoyed the movie. I just think it came out the wrong time.
Yeah.
It was meant to be a trilogy. They set up Darth Maul, the underworld, Kira. Really cool premise. Maybe without Han Solo, you could still tell that story with like Lando and Kira and Darth Maul about the underworld. So I'm just disappointed we won't get that. Like maybe in Maul Shadow Collective, which is coming out later this year, or Shadow Lord, whatever it's called. We'll get more of that solo underworld story, but I was a little bit annoyed. I was just disappointed it got cancelled because I think it was a good movie just released at the wrong time during Star Wars Marvel fatigue, maybe like just like big like, okay, I've got to do my homework for
franchise
everything.
overload.
Yeah, so that was something I noticed with Solo. Another interesting comment she made was there was no interest in the Indiana Jones IP,
as in commercial interest.
I'd assume commercial, just like franchise wise. I think Dial of Destiny critically, commercially did not work. I think it lost $100 million. No one really liked it. And I think that like kind of brought it really just like putting Indiana Jones in the water because it kind of leans into Solo. So apparently they had in the works an animated series and they also had a live action series which was about Indiana Jones's like mentor. So Indiana Jones, they would say, had a mentor character before Raiders of the Lost Ark, and this was the adventures of the mentor. So you get to still do the style of Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford because, like, Star Wars you can do without Harrison Ford. Indiana Jones you can't do without Harrison Ford. I feel like the character and the actor are, like, intrinsically linked. You couldn't have you could do a recast of Indiana Jones because remember Chris Pratt was, like, a soft announcement kind of, like 2017. But I think Indiana Jones you can't have that without Harrison Ford. And deepfake is just never going to be good enough to support a movie or let you engage with a movie. So it'll be interesting to see what long-term Indiana Jones has going for it. Because I think it's a great franchise, great premise of like archaeology and weird religion, sci-fi elements, but it's so grounded in reality in a weird way. And, you know, the original 3 are great. 4's a fun adventure. 5 is just, but I think, like they're the TV show, The Adventures of Young Indy. So they're able to branch off. I just think they can't have Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones character anymore. Like, I think the young Indy worked because it's like a teenager, but I think if you're trying to do like this is the Indiana Jones between Raiders and Last Crusade, he just looks different.
People probably won't buy
you need
it.
the Harrison Ford charm. You can't deep fake. An animated show I think could work, like a Clone Wars style show where whether it's an anthology series or whether it's like an overarching story. I think anthology might work better for an Indiana Jones adventure. And I think like a prequel series about his mentor, it feels like a bit of a cop-out of like we can't do Indiana Jones, so here's Jindiana Jones, his mentor. And it's sort of like, okay, so you want to do Indiana Jones without Indiana Jones, just, I don't know, call it a new series or something, but how is it linked in the Indiana Jones? I feel like Indiana Jones isn't a franchise or a universe to me. It's a discrete set of movies. Enjoy them and let them be. You know, you can have rides, you can have merch, but to sell merch and rides, you need movies and shows. But, you know, because I think they wanted Shia LaBeouf's character William Mutt to kind of launch. After Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he would become the new Indiana Jones adventures. And then no one liked his character, so that didn't work out. So I think they've tried a few times now to make Indiana Jones work without Harrison Ford. I just don't think it does, realistically.
I mean, I was going to say you've taken the point out of my mouth now, but it's not a franchise.
Yeah.
It's a trilogy. I'd say with
trilogy.
Love, it was a trilogy.
Kingdom was I think a fun legacy sequel before legacy sequels were like a big thing.
But even still, I don't think it was necessary, and I think it's cheapened
necessary. But I think there was something
what was
fun.
already a very impressive trilogy of the 80s. They were all in the 80s?
Yeah, all 80s.
Yeah.
But I think there's something charming about like seeing the old Indy. What is he up to? Like the concept of an Indiana Jones sequel when he's older. I like that idea. Obviously, the execution you can debate it, but I don't mind the idea of like a one-off. What's he up to in his older years? Like what adventures has he done for the past 20 years? Sorry, and what stories does he have? What's his last adventure? Like does he find King Arthur's sword, Excalibur, or something? Like the last adventure of his life. And it's the most incredible thing ever. And all of his research across his life. Like, his dad in Last Crusade has the book. If Indiana Jones had like his life's work, let him get to the ultimate treasure in the world. I don't mind the concept of an Indiana Jones legacy sequel because I think it fits the character in the world is that there's always more artifacts to discover and it's more interesting the more experience he's got in the world. But obviously execution, they've done 2 legacy sequels now. It's not working and I'm happy for Indiana Jones. We leave where it is. It's just a nice, you show your kids when they're young, you kind of scar them for life a bit, but it's like fun classic action movies.
I feel like you don't necessarily need the legacy sequel. Like, I agree that it's an interesting... You could make an interesting story out of it. I mean, they've tried to do 2 since, but maybe there's benefit to leaving things as they are.
Yes.
As in, like, it could be interesting.
Yeah. Like, in your head, you think about it. But then I think also you got to have the realism of Hollywood of, like, I think we're coming out of a legacy sequel era. I think we're, like, in it for a while. And I think now we're just starting to escape the legacy sequel era. So I think, like, I get what you're saying, but to be realistic, like, the Indiana Jones 5 movie was inevitable. Just, like, franchise people like an actor that's willing to do it. Let's just make the movie. So that's why I'm okay with the concept. But I do get it. It is, I think maybe we can just leave it now. And maybe they're recognizing that Lucasfilm. Look, they had the game come out last year. So I think a game works to expand the character because they didn't have Harrison Ford voicing the character and you get like a classic indie adventure. I haven't played it yet, but I've heard it's quite good. I think maybe that's like, I think it's one of those franchises now can have a little, like it can have a book or a comic or a game or an animated show could work, but I just think indie's big screen time is over, and that's fine because it means we enjoyed it when it came out, and it means we can make room for a new adventure series. But
even still, I feel like you keep things perhaps a bit more iconic when you just let them be.
Yeah, like 3 solid movies.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the Disneyland ride with the boulder. Like, I think I was 6 when I went on that ride, and I still remember how awesome it was. And if you water it down with these maybe less than ideal movies that are being released decades after the fact, like Star Wars and I'll say Marvel as well, they do have that kind of world appeal to them where you can expand it.
Yes.
But because you said Indiana Jones is so grounded despite some of the themes it touches on, it's not really a world, I don't think. So I don't think you need to keep
I think the only world building is the link between artifacts and sci-fi.
Yeah.
I think that's the only world building. Like, I think Indiana Jones is a character franchise.
Yeah.
It isn't it's
not a
1940s America isn't like an expanded universe we need to explore. It's what other artifacts are there? We've got the Ark of the Covenant. I know there was the Staff of Kings game. That game, you're trying to find the staff that Moses used to part the sea, and you get it, and then you get to like part the sea, and there's like you have like a gunfight, and there's like waves around you, and I think that's like what it's made for. But I don't know if like cool religious artifacts is like a franchise.
No,
I think it's like Indiana Jones. It's the character. Yeah, so I think I'm happy leaving where it is. So yeah.
And also on that note, to Marvel and Star Wars.
Yeah.
I enjoy these franchises as much as the next person, but again, we don't have to keep building necessarily. I mean, I get that they're corporations in a capitalist society and it makes sense for them to go onwards and upwards, but I don't know, sometimes there's a niceness to just
finished story.
finish stories
Yeah.
for one thing, but also doing maybe one thing really well.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I think there are movies out there for that. Like, for example, like the Godfather movies. I think I've watched them like once, but everyone says they're great. So I'm going to use that as an example. That's like a discrete series which is over. And people, for the rest of the time, they can watch that, and there's never going to be a Godfather 2049, you know. So I think I get what you're saying, but I think there are movies, discrete movies, like recently Marty Supreme, like that is a discrete movie. I think there are movies which are in a franchise, and I think franchises can be a good thing, like having that ongoing story. I mean, or maybe another episode. This is getting really deep for the Kathleen Kennedy exit, but you know, franchises, I think there may be us delaying mortality because when movies end, we kind of go, oh, that's it. Whereas franchises, we get more and more.
And I'm not saying there's no franchises at all. Like, yeah, I do enjoy the continuation and expansion of worlds, but doing it maybe within reason.
That's fair. Like, I know you probably don't know much about it, but before Disney came in, Star Wars was 6 movies, Clone Wars, and a whole bunch of books and comics to fill in the rest of the story. So it was like the books and comics are very optional. Like, and they had episodes 7, 8, 9 in book form. So if I wanted to see the story of Luke, Han, and Leia, I got to do that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a stress on pop culture to continue. Do you kind of prefer that we have a story, and of course we have to, we have to keep perpetrating these things. Are you fine with like there being books and comics which flesh out a story, or do you just want like, I just want 6 movies and that's it? Because part of Star Wars, it's the world building. When like Obi-Wan says a wretched hive of scum and villainy, like what does he mean by that? Or in episode 5 when we see the bounty hunters on the Star Destroyer and Boba Fett's the only one we see more of, I want to know the stories of the other 4 bounty hunters. Why did they get invited as well? So I think Star Wars intrinsically has that intrigue where you want to pull behind the curtain a bit more and see like what's going on a bit more. And I think maybe a more contemporary example is I don't need the Bok spin-off series from Wicked as like a TV show, right? I could see that happening, but I feel like that's something where you have like a discrete story. And I know there are like books that it's based off and keeps going, but I think the world of Wicked as the musical movie, I think that's a finished story.
Yeah.
But I think that story is made to be a complete story. Whereas I think Star Wars inherently, it's meant to be this massive galaxy sprawling adventure. You know, when Han talks about, that bounty hunter we encountered on Ord Mantell, I want to read that book. You know, and I would be a bit annoyed if we never got to find out what happened on Ord Mantell, or when Obi-Wan says to Anakin, that business on Caden Moidia doesn't count. Well, I want to decide if it counts or not, you know? So I think there is a space for continuing stories. I think the world has to be built around it. Like, for example, I think maybe another contemporary example, Stranger Things, I don't know if it's built for 5 seasons, a play, 3 spin-off shows,
a cartoon.
Books, a cartoon. Yeah. I think Stranger Things is like a fun 1 to 3 season TV show. And maybe kind of like Breaking Bad, maybe that's another good example of like, it's a main story with the spin-off, but I think we're done here. And I think it's a nice package. Like you've got the 2 shows in the movie, and it's a complete story now, and I hope they don't really revisit it. Yeah.
I think my comments are more in relation to the Indiana Jones franchise within Lucasfilm. Because, Star Wars I would coin
that's
as a
always
universe.
Pumping out stuff.
And there's a lot of stories to tell. Like, I really love The Mandalorian. That's completely separate to the original 6 movies.
Yes.
Or 9 at that point. I guess they were all out by then. And that's a story that I do want to hear and find out about that if they hadn't expanded the universe, we wouldn't have got.
Yes.
But coming back to Marvel, somewhat related, I guess.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I kind of believe it should have ended with No Way Home.
Yeah.
And was that ever going to happen in the society we live in?
No,
Probably not.
If it's the most profitable franchise ever, like, why would they? Yeah.
But looking back on Marvel between
then and now,
No Way Home and now.
Yeah, it's a different story.
It would have been nice if they wrapped it up with that.
Yeah. Or I think maybe a reboot for Marvel.
Or like even rebooting it now.
Which they're going to do.
But
they are
as
going
in
to do
like
that.
not releasing anything between 2021 and now.
I think they need to make people miss them, like play a bit mean. Be like, you're getting no Marvel for 5 years. And everyone's like, oh, come on, we want Spider-Man back.
Yeah.
You know? And I think maybe you're right. They maybe need a break. I think Marvel can be another episode, like the whole, that behemoth of a machine. But I do get what you're saying. And they're going to be doing a hard reboot with Marvel. And maybe it could have been... I think the multiverse was always an interesting idea to... Kathleen Kennedy left Lucasfilm. My last point that I noticed, I think, because all these things about all these movies and shows that are coming back, I think Celebration 2027 is going to be packed with announcements. I think they're going to bring out, because it's 50 years, they're going to bring out everyone. But all of these, everything that's been mentioned here, we're not going to hear about until Celebration next year. I think they'll say, and we've got James Mangold, Dawn of the Jedi coming out in 2 months. And, they're just announcing it then. And we've got Taika Waititi next year. And we've got the Simon Kinberg trilogy coming out 2 years. And we've got Hunt for Ben Solo coming straight to Disney Plus in 6 months' time. And we've got the Lando movie coming out in 2030. I think they're not going to talk about this stuff at all until Celebration when they do the big Lucasfilm panel, and they're going to have like 10 announcements back to back of just, here's everything in the past we talked about, here's release dates, here's trailers, here's new stuff, here's Starfighter in a month. I think that's my last little personal insight. I think that's it, I think, until next April when we have Celebration Anaheim. So that is pretty much it. That was an insane tangent we had in the middle there of talking about franchises, but it's an interesting conversation. I love having tangents on the podcast, hearing our real opinions about things. And I think overall this news is really, I don't think it sends shockwaves through Hollywood. I don't think it's enough of a shake-up. Like, I think if this happened like after episode 9 came out, I think that would have been a bit more controversial of like a reactive move.
I was going to say reactionary,
this feels like a planned, there was a succession plan. I think probably, I think Kathleen Kennedy said she went to Bob Iger a year or two ago and named those two as the successors. So this wasn't like an overnight switch. Planned. And they've been obviously training them up a bit too.
The plan has been in action. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they have been like training them up to take on these roles. So that's why I have confidence that there won't be like a hard stop in any projects for 5. Like, when Disney bought Lucasfilm, anything that they were making before the acquisition kind of got cancelled. Whereas I don't think that'll happen now. I think it's going to be a continuation. I think it'll be interesting in maybe by 2028, 29 is when these two co-heads have been in there for a few years. Like, I think the first couple of years will just be finishing off the work that was set up, and then once they get that creative freedom of, okay, we've kind of done everything that Kathleen Kennedy set up, where do we go now? I think that'll be interesting. So the 2030s, I think, are when we'll get a fresh or different or the same take on Star Wars. I think that's when we'll see these changes really materialize. Once again, in business studies, it usually takes a while for these changes to, the big machines, and especially in Hollywood, it'll take a while to change these things. So I'm really excited to see where they go. I think another interesting example of, people talking about heads of companies, and because I think Kathleen Kennedy, has done a net positive for Star Wars. She brought Star Wars into the modern era. She brought Star Wars back into the, franchise Marvel era of cinema. Because, Star Wars after 2005 was a bit of like a old man's franchise. It was a bit like, okay, with Star Wars, the story that was told, it's over. Is there much more to say? All the people that like it are like nerds. I mean, it was like, it was one of the biggest franchises still, even after 3 came out. But I think she had a big role of bringing it into the modern cinema era, like the 2010s, where cinema was becoming more maybe commercialized, you could say, and we're having franchises, and studios were planning 10 years in advance for what movies looked like. Or it used to be maybe they just make one movie at a time and discreetly make a little plan. They might have like a duology or a trilogy every now and then, but with Marvel, they're going, we have to start making a 10-year timeline for things. And I think that is a big thing undertaking, being in charge of, I couldn't imagine the pressure of being in the head of the company that's making Star Wars Episode 7.
Yeah.
And then doing the Disney parks and doing the merch and doing events and shareholder meetings and, hearing fans on Twitter. And so it isn't an easy job. So look, commend her for, what she's done. Obviously, a few missteps along the way, which have been recognised, which means they will try to rectify them in future. And once again, we can give criticisms because it helps improve, but we just don't be rude or negative or make threats to people about their job, because they're trying their best. They're doing what they think is in the best interests of the IP franchise company. And I'm very interested to see where the future direction of Lucasfilm goes. I think obviously Star Wars, but even their other things like Indiana Jones, is that done now probably. So I think that's pretty much it for the first episode of 2026, unless you had anything to add.
I mean, I must say, I may have mentioned on the podcast before, but I don't have the fondest memories of being, I'll say, made to watch episode 4. So if it weren't for the post 2013 Star Wars, like, I certainly wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't be into it,
No, I have said before, I'm not the biggest fan of the originals solely for the time period that they were
Yeah,
made.
yeah.
I'm a modern audience member. They're not modern movies, so there's always going to be some sort of disconnect there. But even the prequels, although I like them now, I wouldn't have ever bothered to watch them because of my experience with the originals.
Yeah, or view them in depth as much, yeah.
Whereas if I was in primary school and The Mandalorian came out, of course I would watch it.
Baby Yoda backpack, lunchbox.
Yeah, right.
The works, yeah.
So
no, I get it, yeah.
I'm sure some people have valid criticisms,
Exactly.
but I think, 2013 to now, Star Wars really has expanded, and I'd say largely for good.
And definitely grown, yeah. I think Star Wars is one of those evergreen franchises. Dave Filoni said, I think if Lucasfilm was listening to me and they want to know what I have to say, I think the future of the franchise is diversification in projects. So I think you have to do Skeleton Crew and Andor and the Mole animated TV show. So you need the kid show to bring in people in, but still, like, not kid doesn't mean bad quality. Okay, I like Skeleton Crew, but you have Andor, which is there is a fan base that are mature aged fans, and I think catering to them does a lot of legwork because it also means that like Hollywood takes Star Wars seriously. Like Andor has kind of made the Golden Globes go, oh, Andor was a real show that came out, So I think, and maybe it attracts like a Vince Gilligan. Yeah. Seeing a show like Andor going, oh, Star Wars is, and I'm not saying this isn't what I'm saying, this is what people might say. Star Wars is telling real stories and they're trying to tell character stories. They're not being a franchise anymore. It draws in those creatives to tell unique and interesting stories. Yeah. And then you need animation to flesh out the world, to keep us going a bit more, and just a bit more diversity. I think another thing people have highlighted with the new heads, hopefully we're getting more video games, because the Star Wars Disney games have been largely very satisfying and really good. They've just been incredibly infrequent and delayed. So the Star Wars Jedi series been great. The last one was 2022, I think. Haven't heard anything about the third one. Maybe Celebration might hear something, but that was a game we haven't heard. Star Wars Battlefront 2 had a massive resurgence recently. Everyone loved it. We haven't heard anything about it. The games that are in the pipeline, people either aren't interested or they're ages away. Like I think about Pod Racer game this year, people are interested, but Star Wars Eclipse, Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic, those are years away. So I think having more frequent games, I think games in Star Wars specifically have a big legacy, because like a lot of the 90s games and the Kyle Katarn games and some of the other bounty hunting games and there's like, I forgot one character. I think Dash Rendar, maybe. I'm misremembering it. These are big fan favorite characters who only appear in video games. And Cal Kestis is a new fan favorite. Everyone's like, when's Cal Kestis coming to live action? And that's because people connect with the games a lot. I think Star Wars specifically is a franchise where games work. Marvel, not so much. As in like in the Marvel universe, like Marvel Rivals has worked. But as Star Wars works for games, people connect to those characters in games. I think maybe a new direction is having more games and then having diversity in projects. So I think they need to get more movies coming out, because I think Star Wars is a theater experience for me, really. That's why I'm looking forward to Mandalorian and Grogu. They've got 7 movies, like trilogies and duologies and all these things. They've got a lot of movies in the work, which I'm happy to hear. But then we can't have burnout of movie. And then we need to have TV shows, but we can't have it Marvel where it's like homework TV. Yeah. Because they've got a point where you're watching Marvel Disney Plus because you're like, okay, I'm watching Doctor Strange. What is happening here and whatever. So
on that note, I was just going to quickly say, I hope that Star Wars continues to prioritize quality in the story they're telling. Quality and quantity, I guess, is great if you balance it. Yes. But as long as quality comes first, then I'm really enjoying the expansion of the universe.
Yeah, I would rather less content that's higher quality. Yeah. That's not like a controversial opinion, I think, but it is one of those things. I guess it's harder as a business. They've got their quarterly reports to shareholders, to, banks and all these loan people. They need to be getting money coming in. And with Disney Plus, it's hard to measure how much money you're making. So I understand that, but it is, I think it is just taking a bit more time making high quality projects. Yeah. Not abandoning things as soon as people don't like it. Boba Fett and Acolyte aren't getting season 2s. I think there's shows that would benefit from it. I think Boba Fett is one where they could maybe look at the fans, what they say, work on it. Acolyte is a show, I understand why people didn't like it, but I think a season 2 could be one of the shows where you go, okay, you kind of have to watch the season 1 to enjoy season 2. Because imagine Quimia's story.
I put Andor in that category, personally.
I was going to say, I think we weren't the biggest fans of Andor 1, but I think Andor 2 might be my favorite Star Wars project, or definitely in the top 3 or 5. But if they'd given up after Andor, I know a lot of people liked Andor 1, but if I was in the majority, I hope they wouldn't have given up on Andor just because people said they didn't like it. Like, criticism means, all right, let's take it on board, let's fix it, improve it, and make it even better season 2 or movie. So
yeah, and for the most part, I mean, I'm not on Twitter, so
neither. Yeah.
Criticism, I would say, means people care.
There's that.
Like,
people
that
love
they
it.
want it to be better because they love it so
it becomes
much
like
and they
the
want to see
troll
more
culture.
of it. Yeah,
There's
that's what
but
I'm hesitant to
in good
touch
faith.
on. But yeah, good
it means
criticism.
usually Star Wars is like, I love this, I want this to be better.
Exactly.
So I think that's the fair thing. So I think making shows that aren't Marvel-ified of like, all right, if I want to watch my Mandoverse movie, I've got to watch Book of Boba Fett. No, I want to watch Book of Boba Fett because it's a cool story with a cool character. And if it bleeds into Mandoverse movie, even better. It's not like I have to watch it. So I think it's so important that they don't go all in on Andor style shows. I loved Andor, but if they have all these mature, harsh shows, I think it loses like the joy and fun. Like, I like Skeleton Crew.
I was about to say, I'm
because it's
very
maybe the
excited
antithesis
to get
is like Skeleton Crew.
2, hopefully.
I liked it, decent quality show, but because it was full of like whimsy and like so low stakes and not serious in the slightest, it felt like, oh wait, this is what episodes 4 and 6 maybe were like when you're a kid and if they're coming out, or prequels is like, oh, Star Wars is like a silly, goofy space opera. But then Andor says, yes, there's this silly, goofy space opera, but what if we took it seriously? What if we look at this angle? What about this aspect of the world? Because you grew up with the silly things, but as you grow up in the world's a bit darker. How do you make sense of it in this same universe? But also, it's so cool how they can balance these tones in the one franchise, So, look, I mean, the most insane thing they could do is make a Star Wars musical movie. I would say it. I mean, it'd be so cool to see it. Yeah, so I'll say. But
with
overall,
Ludwig
I think
working with them.
Yeah, I think this change was bound to come. I think a change. This is a good change, I'd say. And that doesn't mean Kathleen Kennedy's bad. I think it's a good change. Freshen up for the franchise. I think 2030s is when we'll get a new look on Star Wars. Yeah. So this news is exciting. I'm really glad to hear as well all those projects announced in 2021 aren't dead in the water. They're still being prodded away out. But I think that is it for our first episode of 2026. Thank you for putting up with our rambles and tangents.
Well, I might give a closing statement then.
Oh, of course, please. Closing statement, yeah.
Build off the groundedness of Indiana Jones. Star Wars is a universe, and I'm enjoying the expansion of the universe. I'm just also enjoying the really high quality projects. And I think we should also express a gratitude to Kathleen Kennedy for 12 years at one of the biggest, I'd say,
most
media
stressful jobs ever.
corporations in the world. Agree. Yeah, highly stressful job.
Because things like Andor don't get made without. Like, Andor is a risk when they made it, and without the support of the head of the company.
Sometimes the people at the top are the ones who have to make those hard decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Because a risk means you have a really bad outcome or you have a great outcome. And sometimes it doesn't pay off, and I'd rather studios take risks.
Yeah.
But then it's hard because it's like, oh, but I want them to take only good things. So I don't know. It's not.
It's a hard job, and I don't.
It's an incredibly difficult job.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like, all everything's great or everything's bad. It's just being realistic, and some things are good, some things are bad, and it's how do we go forward? How do we look at the good stuff? Say, how do we work on that? Make it better. The bad stuff. What did we learn from this? And I think closing statements. Kathleen Kennedy has an overall, I'd say, a good legacy. Oh, right, and an incredible legacy in film. I think she's moving into producing again, but incredible film legacy. Like, if you think Spielberg and George Lucas revolutionized cinema, that doesn't happen like Kathleen Kennedy. Like, she is also a part of that story of Hollywood where it kind of branched into this bigger blockbuster side of Hollywood. She is also responsible for that. So that credit is due there. And then taking Star Wars into the modern era and then handing it off to these two people now to kind of go wild with it and then see where it goes. So, there were missteps, but there was a lot of hits along the way. So, very interesting news. We'll see where it leads us. And I guess we'll find out in 15 years' time if it was the right call or not. But that's it for today's episode and the first of 2026 of Cast the Whills. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you follow us on any of those platforms, you officially become a guardian of the Whills. Till then, may the podcast be with you. Bye.
Bye.